Thanks so much for coming back to Dinner Party Guru to join me for Thanksgiving cooking. You know, Thanksgiving to me is all about memory, and one of my fondest memories was growing up as a child and waking up on Thanksgiving morning and smelling my grandmother Nanny's wonderful chicken and dressing. Even as an adult, I would just look so forward to smelling that every Thanksgiving when I came to visit her. So I want to share that recipe with you. I hope you enjoy it and find it as delicious as we do. And hopefully you can create some memories of your own when you wake up on Thanksgiving morning and cook Nanny's chicken and dressing. Let's get started. This chicken and dressing is easy to make, and the best news is it can be made ahead. In fact, it's even better if you make it ahead. I always make mine the day before Thanksgiving and then just put it in the refrigerator, and in the morning of Thanksgiving I bake it. It can be made way in advance, up to a month ahead, and frozen in the freezer up to the point of cooking it, and then just thaw it out the day before and do the same thing, just cook it the day of Thanksgiving. So I've done some things beforehand, and we'll go take a look at that, and then we'll come back and talk about the rest of the ingredients. The night before, mix up your cornbread. I always just buy plain white cornmeal and follow the package directions on the back for the cornbread. You'll need to double that recipe, and I always use buttermilk rather than just regular milk. I find it makes the cornbread better. So combine all that and put it into your pre-greased baking dish. Place it in your oven at 450 according to the package directions, and your cornbread will be ready the next morning. For the chicken part of the dressing, I'm using a 5-pound hen. I've already rinsed it and placing it in a pot of cool water. You want the water to barely cover the bird, just like this. Place the bird on your stove. Use a deep pot with a lid. Turn your heat to medium and slightly vent the lid of the pot. This will prevent the chicken from boiling over. Cook for about an hour. Once it's done, remove it from the pot. And after it's cooled, we'll shred the meat from the chicken so that we just have shredded chicken. We're going to saute some vegetables for the dressing. We're going to have yellow onion. I find that the sweet yellow onions are more delicious in the dressing than, say, a red onion or an onion that's not sweet. We're also, of course, going to have celery. This is about 2.5 cups each of the chopped onion and the chopped celery. Just a whole head of celery will make about this much, as well as a whole onion about this size will give us the right amount of onions. So for the celery, I just chopped it down the center, and then just into little cubes. Very quick to do. You can also get your husband or a child to help you do this. Probably an older child, of course. We want to be safe. Just add that to our celery. I like to try to get the really green celery. I find it has more flavor than the ones that are pale. So if you get a bunch that are pale, you might want to take that back or look a little bit harder in the bin and find one that has a lot of green on it. For the onion, I just cut it up into a slice like this and then cut across. These were very seemed to be sort of spicy, even though they're sweet earlier and made me cry, so I decided I'd cut those ahead. And then you just cut them into small pieces. You don't want people to really feel the onion in the dressing, but you want them to have the taste of the onion. And we'll just add that to our onions. Now we'll go saute these in a stick of butter. So I've melted a stick of butter. I prefer to use the unsalted butter, and for whatever recipe you're doing, if you need to add salt, just add that manually. So now we'll add our vegetables, our celery and our onion. And we'll saute that just until the vegetables start to tenderize. We don't want them real tender because they're going to get tender as we cook them in the dressing. Put it on fairly high heat also. And we'll just let that saute a little bit until it's done. So our vegetables have been cooking about 10 minutes, and I just added 2 tablespoons of rub sage. I love the rub sage better than the dried sage. I think the rub just has a better flavor, and Nanny always used rub sage in her dressing. So it's looking good. I think it's done. They're just translucent. They're not brown, and man, the sage smells wonderful. So I'll take that up in a bowl, and we'll continue with our dressing. We'll boil some eggs, and once they're done, we'll chop them. For the chicken and dressing and the gravy we're going to make, we're going to need 6 hard-boiled eggs. Always start your hard-boiled eggs out in cold water. Place them gently into the pan. Try not to break them. Set the heat to medium-high and boil for 15 minutes. Once they're done, chop them into tiny pieces. So this is the cornbread I cooked last night and let dry overnight. I just crumbled it up in the bowl. You want it to be fairly coarse, so you want to do it by hand. Don't use a food processor to do it. And we'll go ahead to that, and we're going to add 6 eggs. I already have 5 eggs here, so we'll beat another one into here. I like to use free-range eggs. I think they have more flavor than regular eggs. Plus, I think it's just better. We'll mix those up. Oh, they're a beautiful yellow color. That's the other thing about pasture-raised eggs, is that they have a lovely yellow color. So those are mixed up. We're also going to use some store-bought stuffing that goes into this. It has a lot of flavor, so you don't have to buy a lot of seasonings yourself or figure out what the right quantity of seasonings is to use. Nanny always used this. Pepperidge Farm has been around a long, long time, and it just makes the dressing very, very delicious. So I'll add that next. I also get the one that says classic stuffing. They have all different kinds, but this is the one that I buy. Smells good. Just kind of mix that up by hand. As we cooked our celery and onions, we added our sage, but I also like to add this Bragg's organic sprinkle to the dressing. It smells like the seasons, and to me it just always smells like chicken and dressing. So I'll add some of that next. Just a very liberal shake of it. Just kind of cover the top of the cornbread mixture with the season, like that. We'll go ahead and add our vegetables now that we sauteed. Wonderful. Mix that up just a little bit. When we add our other liquid ingredients, this is going to wilt down some, so it'll be easier for us to mix. Go ahead and add our eggs. Again, 6 beaten eggs. Looking really good. These are the eggs that I boiled and chopped earlier. Again, that's about 4 eggs. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more salt. I think a dressing really needs salt, so it has quite a bit of flavor. And since we used unsalted butter in our vegetables, we need a little bit of salt. This is probably about 2 teaspoons of salt. When we cooked our chicken, we had chicken broth, of course, and that was a 5-pound chicken that I cooked, and usually a 5-pound chicken will give you about 3 cups of broth. We actually need about 8 cups for this dressing because we want it to be moist so that it doesn't dry out as we bake it. So I'll go ahead and add the stock from the chicken. This is, again, is about 3 cups, so let's mix that up and see how it looks. complement the broth from the chicken, I like to buy a good organic bone broth, chicken bone broth. It's very rich, and again, the broth from the chicken will not be enough for the dressing, so we'll add that next. Add it slowly so that you can make sure you don't get the dressing too thin. Smelling so good and looking so good. Sometimes I'm tempted to eat it raw, but because it has raw eggs in it, I don't do that. Everything's just coming together so nice. Go ahead and add the rest of the broth. The nice thing that the Pepperidge Farm or any stuffing mix does for a cornbread dressing is it's very dry and crunchy, so it keeps the dressing from becoming gluey. I don't like a gluey dressing. You want it to be soft on the mouth, but not gluey. Go ahead and add the rest of the broth. Wish it was Thanksgiving morning. Yeah, that looks just right. So now we'll get the bird and assemble our casserole. I've already prepared a 13 by 9 inch baking dish. I like to use a glass dish so I can see how well the turkey is cooking on the bottom. And I've sprayed it with a cooking spray. I like the one that's butter flavor. I think it has more flavor than the one that is just oil. So the first step is to put some dressing in the bottom of the pan. You want to fill it about, a third full with dressing. It looked like a lot when we made it, but now that we're putting it in the pan, it's starting to go. Just like that. Thought I heard Finn behind me. I don't know if he photobombed again or not. The best way to put the chicken in is with your hands, clean of course. And we have a mixture of the white meat and the dark meat from the legs, so we'll just put that on top of the dressing. This smells so good. Wish you guys could smell it. It reminds me so much of old times. Be sure and be careful and don't have any bones, because people aren't expecting bones when they bite into a piece of chicken and dressing, so be careful about that. Just want to get lots of chicken on there, just to completely almost cover the dressing. There's a bone. So what people do is they'll just take a piece of this and bite into it and taste the delicious chicken. All the herbs we have in here, the celery and the onion, the sage. It's going to be delicious. That's about right. I usually have a little chicken left over that I give to Mr. Finney. Then we'll just put another layer of dressing so we don't see the chicken. It'll be a surprise. Of course, for us, we always expect it, so I guess it's not a surprise for us. But for you guys, it'll be a surprise. It's looking so pretty. And again, don't forget, I always make this the day before Thanksgiving and get it up to this point that we are right now. Just put it in your refrigerator. You probably want to cover it pretty good with something like a saran wrap or something like that. And then just take it out the morning of Thanksgiving so it comes to a room temperature. You don't want it stone cold when you put it in the oven. We're going to cook it at 350 for about an hour and 15 minutes. You need to watch it. You don't want the bottom or the sides or the top to be too brown. but you want it done enough that it doesn't taste raw. So about an hour and 15 minutes at 350 is just about right. Just make sure your oven is completely preheated before you put it in. Worked out perfect. So, Nanny's chicken and dressing ready to go in the oven. Again, 350, preheated for about an hour and 15 minutes. Then we'll have dressing and it'll be delicious. While the chicken and dressing is cooking, we'll prepare the brown turkey gravy. For the gravy that I always serve with the turkey, I take a little bit of a shortcut. I used to always make homemade completely from scratch, but several years ago I learned a trick and I wanted to share that with you guys because it's so much easier than doing all that work. The first step is to buy a good store-bought roasted turkey gravy. I like this one, the home-style Heinz. I think it's very rich and it just tastes great. So I put 2 jars of that, 2 12-ounce jars. Go ahead and turn on the heat. I'll let that simmer for just a little bit until it gets a little bit less thick. Well, I love how the turkey gravy tastes. I like it to be a little bit more rich, and one of the things I like to add to it is a chicken gravy. I always buy this Pioneer brand. It adds another depth of flavor to the gravy, and I just love it. So I'll add that next. And then go ahead and add a cup of water, a cup of cold water. Mix all that up. It may look a little lumpy at first, but it'll become lumpless as you stir it and as it heats up. Another secret ingredient is kitchen bouquet. It's a brown seasoned sauce that I use all the time on roast, and it's very delicious in a gravy. So I'll add about a tablespoon of that, and that'll also darken up the gravy and make it look a lot more rich when we put it in the bowl. So about a good tablespoon. Looking really good. Just let that cook for a few minutes. What you want is that you want it to look a little bit more thin. Now that our gravy is about the right consistency, which is about like this. You see that? I'll go ahead and reduce the heat. And the other 2 ingredients I always add to my dressing or gravy that I serve with dressing is chopped boiled egg. This is 1 chopped boiled egg. It's chopped a little bit finer than the egg was for the dressing. And about a 1/3 cup of that chopped of the chicken that we use for the dressing, but I've chopped it a little bit finer. Just mix that in. Looking delicious. It's just a very delicious gravy to serve with. Even with just plain chicken, it's very delicious, but with the chicken and dressing, it's spectacular. Okay. Now you can make this ahead and just heat it up the day of Thanksgiving if you want to. Just put it into the pan, heat it for about 10 minutes or so. You may need to add a little bit of water too if it becomes too thick as you're reheating it. And then just pour it into your serving dish. I like to use a clear dish because I like for people to see all the delicious goodness of it. As you can see, it makes quite a bit, but it takes quite a bit on Thanksgiving Day to make sure you have plenty of gravy for everybody to go around. So that's the the gravy for the chicken and dressing. I wish I could eat it now. So here we have the chicken and dressing fresh out of the oven. And oh, I wish you guys could smell it. It's just glorious. I can't wait to serve it. We'll serve it with a big spoon so everybody can dip a nice helping, and a wonderful brown gravy that we made together. That just goes wonderful with the chicken and dressing. My sister Candy is my official taste tester. She always says the same thing every year. Pretty good, but I'm not sure it's as good as Nanny's. So I want to encourage all of you, if you have a wonderful recipe from a family member, be sure and document that. You don't want it to be lost. You want to always be able to recreate that memory that you had of that special dish they made. So I hope you enjoy this recipe, and I hope you think of my Nanny on Thanksgiving morning when you prepare it. It's wonderful.